What is going on, Texas? It's your two favorite native sons, SAJ, and to this side.
What's up, everybody? I'm BD, coming at you from the PB Crisp Studios today.
Oh, snap. I was coming from the HEB Crispy Cereal Studios myself.
Oh, man.
Because we do things a little bit cheaper down here on this side of town.
That's right.
Welcome, everybody. Right. We're super glad that you're all here. We have a bunch of stuff to talk about. We're going to be covering the USFL, a little bit of IHL. We're thinking hockey here. The IFL, NAL. We've got a bunch of XFL news, especially with this being playoff weekend. So let's go ahead and kick it off with our friends over at the USFL. This is a pretty interesting weekend. I did not get to see a whole bunch of the games. Obviously, had commitments, that kept me away from the TV, but I did try and get some updates. I will say, though, that I did watch the Breakers game on Sunday, and that was a fun game to watch. I mean, minus the stands being full of fans, of course, but the action itself was not too bad. So, Brian, did you get a chance to watch any of these, or at least any highlights of these games?
Was watching some highlights. Didn't get a chance to watch the games live. Had some kid had some basketball games and stuff this week, and so I was watching those. But yeah, I was able to watch some highlights, get the recaps. It's like a pretty decent weekend of football for those guys. So, and Houston's coming back, man.
Yeah, I was just going to say, one thing I did notice is that Houston definitely put up a game this weekend, and very, very surprised by their efforts. We've commented at the beginning of the season when Houston started out, they had a very, very rough start, and they went, first to turn it around last weekend, and this weekend they actually showed that they knew how to play some football. So could this be Houston's rise to the top, or, is this much like, the typical Houston team where they show a little bit of, sizzle and then just kind of burn out? What do you think?
Well, Wade Phillips isn't their coach, so, they may have a chance to sustain it.
They definitely could. So looking at Houston's stats this weekend, total passing yards was 244, 17 completions on 24 attempts, basically about 10 yards per attempt and 2 passing touchdowns. While on the ground, they had 219 yards on 37 attempts, averaging about 5.9 yards and then 3 rushing touchdowns. So they definitely...
That's a ground game right there.
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely, made it look like they knew what the heck they were doing. Behar went 15-21, quarterback rating of 139, which is pretty impressive. I know he's had some struggles at the beginning of the season, but it looks like, he's finally gotten on the same page with the receivers, and, that whole progress is really starting to turn towards the upward trend, right? Wilson went 2 for 3, had himself quarterback rating of 86.8. So again, not bad numbers at all. Thompson, of course, was a workhorse, right? He had 13 attempts for 134 yards. I mean, those by any stretch is extremely impressive numbers. I mean,
oh yeah,
people celebrate when, a running back in the NFL goes over 100, right? And this cat's doing it. So it's going to be really interesting to see, the adjustments that Houston has made to their gameplay to, see if it's enough to carry him through the season and, maybe get him into the postseason. But so, yeah, that was a pretty good game. I did see some highlights of that. Again, it pretty much was, Houston highlights. Mm-hmm. Houston wound up getting the win on that game, 41-16.
Yeah, it
so like now we go Joe Birds.
Put up much of a fight there.
Yeah. The Panthers, man, that's really surprising because, again, the last 2 weeks they've had, pretty decent games. They've kept the scores close, but this one was not close at all. I mean, they basically scored a touchdown and a field goal in 4 quarters of possession. Whereas Memphis, they went off a little bit, 29 points total. And looking at the box score, if my mouse will cooperate with me, their quarterback went 15 to 26, 151 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. So he got himself about a 74.4% passer rating. On the ground, they had a total of, where is my rushing? On the ground, they had 94 yards, and that's among the whole team. The bulk of the load was carried by White, 15 attempts for only 54 yards. That's averaging about 3.6 yards per carry. Not bad, right? If your intent is, short gains to gain like first downs and stuff like that. But there's no way this is all first downs, right? Some of these were designed run plays and they just weren't getting anywhere with it. But still, they did enough to get it done. Panthers, on the other hand, 2 quarterbacks, and neither one of them did so good. 2 quarterbacks threw for 134 yards total. Strong went 9 of 12, 76 yards. Love went 10 of 15 for 58 yards. Hopefully he's not related to, Jordan Love. I got a feeling we're going to be seeing a lot of that in the NFL season. Fingers crossed. Hopefully it's not true, but we'll see what happens, right? But in the meantime, on the ground, they didn't really do much either, right? 127 yards total. Scott, 12 attempts, 66 yards. So not bad, right? About 5.5 yards average.
No, but you look at their long, he's got his long of 24. So you take that away, and all the rest of them were, 2-3 yards, and that was about it.
Yeah.
So
and if you don't have that passing game to back that up, your running doesn't really matter much at all, right? So chances are
we see in every league how hard it is to run when you can't pass, and how hard it is to pass when you can't run. So
exactly. So we experienced that ourselves with the XFL season this year with the Brahmas, when we're having the offensive line troubles to start out with, and because of that, we couldn't get our running game going. We couldn't really get our pass game going. We couldn't get our game. Glad that, not to change gears, because I don't want to spend too much time on the XFL right now. I am glad that, we did get it into gear towards the end of the season. It's unfortunate that the better team did not win against DC, but it is what it is, right?
All right.
Kids went out there, they fought their tails off. They definitely proved to me and to a lot of people that they were a good team from the very beginning. It was just a matter of getting players in the right positions and getting them, kind of at that point where they felt comfortable enough to be on the field to do their assignments, right? But again, interesting game, but not much, in the way of football, right? Let's go over to Sunday's games. New Orleans Breakers. This was a good game. It's close score, so it definitely was a defensive battle. But New Orleans moves on into the 4-0 category, the only 4-0 team in the the USFL now. And it was a hard fought game. Final score wound up being Breakers 20, the Generals 17. But look at these stats, right? Bethel Thompson, 26 of 37, 279 yards. Now, unfortunate for him, he didn't have a single passing touchdown, and he did throw a pick, right? So that dropped his numbers down quite a bit. Whereas, come over here to the Generals, Johnson went 7 of 14 for 113 yards. And but that's not the full tale of the tape, right? So obviously they had to score somehow. And Johnson had one passing touchdown. But let's look at these rushing yards.
That's pretty good right there, man.
Mm-hmm. Hills, 26 attempts, 88 yards. His longest was 15. So you're averaging pretty decent yards. I mean, you're looking at about, 2.5 yards per carry, give or take, if my math is correct. But then you did also have Bethel Thompson that had 2 carries for 10 yards. and we flip over to the Generals.
They had a pretty balanced run game.
Yeah, the Generals had themselves a run game this game. Williams had 8 attempts, 70 yards. His longest was 23. That's pretty solid.
Yeah.
Victor had 9 carries, 64 yards. Longest was 30. And then their quarterback had 5 rushes for 38 yards. That's where it's going to make a difference, right? That's where, when you have a quarterback that can cheat up like that, that is going to get the coverage off of your receivers, because they're going to pull that man back up to protect, kind of midfield, to make sure the quarterback isn't able to break off like that. But that definitely sings a lot of praises to that line, that they're able to create those holes for the running backs and for the quarterback, and keep that pressure off of them.
Yeah.
Receiving wise, obviously the Generals did not do so great. They had Echols Looper had 2 receptions for 71 yards, but one was 62 yards, right? So that means he caught 1 for 9.
Yeah.
And then Bowman caught 1 for 26. Moore caught 2 for 20. And then, of course, Victor, the running back here, he caught 1 for -1 yard.
Yeah, it looks like neither running back was catching out of the backfield. So each had 1 catch. Both of them were negative yards.
Yep. So flip it over to the Breakers, right? Hills was definitely catching some out of the backfield. 7 receptions, 71 yards. That's pretty solid, right? That's about 10 yards on average. Although it's kind of weird that his average is higher than almost as high as his longest. That means he was getting out there, but he wasn't getting very far out there. Sorry, by the way, this cup, Jackie, if you're watching, this cup's for you, right? No step on snake. But overall, it was a really good game, and it was a fun game to watch. Again, kind of a weird experience, not having fans in the stands, but it was a pretty decent game. And then the last game of the week was Birmingham Stallions versus Pittsburgh Maulers. They played this one in Canton. It looks like the games this week were in Detroit and in Canton. I know they kept talking a lot about the Hall of Fame, or the Football Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Which just seemed kind of weird. They kept talking about it during the USFL, almost like it was trying to give the game some kind of validity or something. But it was a fairly balanced game. Right time of possessions are really close. Total drives are close. Total plays, Stallions had a heck of a lot more and less yardage overall, but still walked away with the win. Mago, I think his name is. I know they pronounced it on the game, and I meant to make a note of it and completely botched it, so I apologize if you're watching. We're just going to say Maga. He had 17 to 29, 157 yards, but right, his quarterback rating goes down because he did throw 2 picks in that game.
Yep.
And then for the Maulers, Brian, you got the stats up?
I
Why
do.
don't you talk to us about Williams?
So Williams, he went 21 to 33, 217 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. So, not a blow it away game. Just kind of pass it down the field a little bit. But he didn't give it away. So that's what's important. Rushing numbers, looks like Williams was the big rusher of the game for him. 7 of 63 for a long of 34. So, and 1 touchdown. So other than that, 5 of 19, 2 of 14. They didn't really have a very strong run game.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, though, but isn't Williams their quarterback?
Yes, he is.
So why would your quarterback be getting the most touches on the ball when it comes to rushing yardage? Flip the script. Maga did the same thing. 10 attempts, 48 yards, right? Where are the running backs in these plays? you know?
Well, it looks like, I mean, at least with the Stallions, White, he had 10. Actually, look at all the attempts. The attempts were balanced, 10 all the way down.
Mm-hmm.
48 for McGaw, 41 for White, and 35 for Marable. So
now, I will say on this one, I believe their starting quarterback for Birmingham, I cannot remember his name, but I believe their starting quarterback was injured, and so this is their backup quarterback.
Okay. You see that a lot when backup quarterbacks come in, is they run a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
Probably, just kind of get them a little more comfortable, Yeah.
So, well, and then McGaw did have some issues connecting with his receivers, most likely because he didn't have a whole lot of time with them, right? So,
yeah,
everybody knows the importance of the chemistry between a receiver and a quarterback. And if it's not there, it's not there. I mean, it's not something that's going to develop overnight. I mean, it takes time. So, some of these pass attempts were probably shot down because McGaw didn't have that relationship. Receiver's supposed to run 10, post out to the right, hit him 5 yards out. He runs 10, swoops to the left. Oops, there goes your option, right?
Yep.
And McGaw did throw one. I mean, I watched it. One of his picks was 100% misread, and I don't know if it was on the receiver's part or if it was on the quarterback's part, but he 100% put it up where he thought the receiver was going to be, and there was a DB just waiting for it.
Man, those are the worst.
Yep.
Especially if you're a fan of the team, because it's not like it was a bad throw. It's not on the same page.
Yeah, so it does stink a little bit, but again, that's kind of where we're at with the USFL, that the Stallions did eke out that win 24-20 against Pittsburgh Maulers, the Pitts the whole way through. So let's go ahead and look forward to week 5, which is going to be really hard for us to watch these games live. Maybe we can catch the Maulers and Panthers game, but there is a bunch of fun activities planned this weekend that is going to keep us away from.
I think we're going to be a little preoccupied on Saturday. So 11:30. I don't know. We'll be checking some scores, but it's probably going to be about it.
I think we'll be sober, at least at that point. But so we've got the Pittsburgh Maulers at 1-3 going up against the Michigan Panthers at 2-2. That should be a somewhat interesting game, but based on the records and the level of play and everything, I'm going to be picking Pittsburgh to get that win, right? Pittsburgh's been a scrappy team. They've just had some unlucky breaks, and they've hung in with some of the stronger teams. So I'm going to pick Pittsburgh on that one. Here's the one that I would love to watch. Fortunately, we're going to be busy at this time, but the Gamblers against the Stallions. You've got the 2-2 Gamblers, the up-and-coming 2-2 Gamblers, I should say, versus the 3-1 Birmingham Stallions, who have been playing pretty superior ball up to this point. That one is going to be an interesting game to watch. So I may have to TiVo it, DVR, whatever the kids do nowadays, and just come back and watch that game a little bit later.
Yeah, this is a good test for Houston. Have they finally turned it around, or are they going the right way, or was that just kind of fool's gold what we've seen in the last couple of weeks?
So Brian, what are you thinking about those games on Sunday?
The Generals and Stars. I think I'm looking at the Generals in that game.
Yeah, probably not a bad choice. I mean, the losses that Philly has had have decisively been losses. It's not like it was necessarily super close. They haven't really shown a whole bunch of command on the field. So, I mean, I would say that that's probably a safe bet. But what do I know, right? I'm not Vegas odds.
Right. Now, Showboats and Breakers, 4-0 versus 1-3. How many times have we seen, undefeated team gets a little complacent going into the weekend, and they just, play like crap and drop one.
Mm-hmm. So, and especially with going into this week, Memphis does have some talented people on their roster, but is this going to be the David versus Goliath situation, or is it going to be that they're in every game, so that's going to be it's going to be an interesting game to watch. I'm definitely going to try and tune in and watch as much football as I can on Saturday, and it'll just be good stuff. So let's break it over to the IFL real quick. And I did do some research. I did confirm that the IFL and the XFL actually do have a partnership. So,
nice.
Yeah, there are going to be a lot of players that are going to be eligible for the XFL draft, here towards the end of the year, that are going to be coming from the IFL. And so that's one of the reasons why we're trying to keep, as close of an eye on the happenings in the IFL as possible, because we could be seeing these players as early as next year, right? But that being said, we've also now reached the halfway point after this weekend. We are halfway through the IFL season of 18 games. 18 games. That's ridiculous. The NFL doesn't even play that many. But there were some good games. Definitely that Massachusetts Pirates game versus Green Bay Blizzard. That had some very exciting opportunities in it. Of course, Green Bay eked out the win. Massachusetts eked out the win, rather, 50-49. But there was a lot of excitement in that game. Then we look at the second game of the week, Brian.
That one's the Quad City Steamwheelers, which is, my favorite team name in the league, versus the Iowa Barnstormers. And that wasn't very much of a game. Quad City looked like they took that one easy, man, 60-34. So yep. Iowa just played half a game, apparently.
Which, again, breaks my heart because that's an old AFL team, right?
Yeah.
Why did they give up? So Iowa's having themselves
some struggles
this year.
Not to look ahead too much for the week, but they weren't the worst team of the weekend. So
no,
we'll get to that one in a few.
Yes. So the next game was Tulsa Oilers at Sioux Falls Storm. Sioux Falls Storm pretty much owned that game as well, right? They wound up winning 52-35 over the Tulsa Oilers, and the stats are not great. It pretty much is like the Quad City game. It pretty much was all the home team all the way through.
And then the next one, we've got the Vegas Nighthawks and the Bay Area Panthers, another one, 18-point win. It seemed like only one of the games was close, and that was the Massachusetts and Green Bay,
Well, there was one more game that was close. Only 10
points. That's still two scores.
Game.
So,
right. I definitely want to go back and watch this game. But Northern Arizona Wranglers at Tucson Sugar Skulls. The Wranglers, of course, won that game 31-21. Normal NFL game, XFL, USFL, CFL, EFL, right? These are normal scores for those games.
Yeah.
For an arena team to score 21 points, that's low, right? So I'd like to go back and see what happened, whether it was just, both teams' defenses were just that powerful that they were able to shut down the opposing offense, or if there were problems on the offense, or what exactly led to that score.
I was watching some highlights of this game. I didn't get to watch it live, but I did watch some highlights of it, and there were actually some really good defensive stops in that game. Like just good, steady goal line hits. It was, I think that's probably a lot of what it was. And, they go for it on fourth down on the, 5-yard line or, inside the 5, and defense would stop them. So I think that's really what the biggest part of why the low scores was. Defense was playing real good from the highlights I saw. But you say, 21 is a low score for an arena game. Well, just wait, there's more. Because Frisco and old Duke City put up a lovely 15 in that game.
Yeah, that game. So I did get to watch some of this game, and it decidedly was Frisco all the way through. Again, as we've said before, we're keeping an eye on Frisco because it is a Texas team. Even though it is in, South Oklahoma up there, it's still a Texas team, but it definitely, again, it was Frisco pretty much the whole way.
Oh yeah.
We look at the scoreboard. First quarter, Frisco puts up 20, Duke puts up 0. Second quarter, Frisco puts up 21, Duke puts up
0.
Right. Third quarter, Frisco, probably takes the foot off the gas a little bit, puts up 13. Duke puts up 13. Okay, so that's a wash. And then the fourth quarter, Frisco puts up 13. Duke puts up 2. So it's going to be kind of hard to, put up. You're just not getting it done. Their quarterback, 7 of 26, 67 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. Right. Let's compare that to Mr. Edwards, 9 of 12, 119 yards. And then Jordan Jolly, 1 of 1, 16 yards. Right. It's a big difference there. So they're
I tell you, that number really shocks me. You had more rushing yards than you had passing yards by a lot. 152 rushing yards in an arena game.
Yep.
I don't know if I've ever seen that before.
Yeah, but if you look at, for example, on Duke's team, Whitfield, his longest run was 20 yards. You look over at Frisco, Smith's longest was 25.
Yeah.
Right. Those are big breakaway plays in arena because, it's only a 50-yard field. Right. So 25 yards, even if you're taking it from the goal line, you're midfield.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's just a simple, out route and boom, you've got a touchdown.
I wonder if a lot of that too was, just Frisco running out the clock pretty much. They 26 to blank at halftime, and maybe after that first, halfway through the second quarter, maybe they decided to run it from here on out.
I've got a feeling that there is some of that, probably more in the fourth quarter than anything. But they definitely probably took their foot off the gas just to go easy on them. But again,
they went easy and by scoring 68 points or whatever it was.
Yeah. So again, it was brutal. But Frisco goes on to be trying to look at the standings right now because I believe, yes, Frisco is 6-0.
That's right.
Their next closest competition is the Quad City Steamwheelers, your favorite team, at 5-2. Okay. So I have a feeling that Frisco, if they stay on the track that they're on right now, they're pretty much going to run away with this thing. They're definitely going to win the East, no problem. On the other side of the ball, right, on the Western front,
pretty close,
it is, but those records are a little bit rough to look at. 4-2 for the Bay Area Panthers and for the Northern Arizona Wranglers. That pretty much tells me, if things keep going the way that they're going, that the East is going to run away, and which could be a good thing, but that just means that the Eastern Division was the tougher division this year.
Yeah.
And those lopsided divisions always make for me anyways, maybe a little less entertaining football. I will say though, one thing I was severely impressed with, I did get to catch again some of the highlights on their YouTube channel. Their audio and visual coverage for these games is actually pretty good, all things considered. So there's definitely some money, being thrown in some of these productions. They've got good camera, good audio feed. You can actually hear the refs when it's time for the refs to talk. You get to hear some of the crowd background noise and stuff. It feels kind of like you're at an arena game, right? So I think that kind of helps sell it. Now, again, arena can't necessarily be compared to anything else because it is its own unique game.
Oh, absolutely.
But there is definite entertainment value in this product. So I'm kind of liking this. I'm liking how the IFL is handling their business here. And I'm actually looking forward to trying to catch some games this next week. Speaking of the games this next week, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 7 games next week. So it looks like pretty much everybody is playing. You've got the Steamwheelers at the Pirates. That's going to be interesting to see, right? Because the Pirates, have put up some serious games.
Well, I think you're 1 week off.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I am.
We're at week 9. So yeah, Steamwheelers and the Storm.
6, 7. But it is still 7 teams. Yeah, I'm sorry. So yeah, the Quad City is going up against Sioux Falls, as you said. I don't think that's going to be such a good game. Maybe we should just go ahead and advance to week 10. You've got San Diego Strike Force going up against Green Bay Blizzard. Green Bay's been okay. Strike Force has been okay, so that should be an okay game. Pirates are going up against the Iowa Barnstormers. That's not going to be a good game. Iowa's 0-6 on the season. They've got some struggles of their own going on, so I don't see that ending well for Iowa. It's unfortunate because they're the home team, but stuff happens sometimes. But you've got the Sugar Skulls going to Duke City to play. That should be a fairly decent game also. The one that we're obviously the most interested in is going to be Frisco going up against Tulsa, right?
Looks like that should be an easy game for Frisco.
Should. But here's what I'm worried about. It's South Oklahoma versus Central Oklahoma.
Yep.
So how do you root for that game being from Texas, right? So we're going to be the hometown homers. We're going to support Frisco on that. But it should be a pretty decent game to watch, right? So the next game, you've got Bay Area Panthers at Northern Arizona Wranglers. That should be a fairly decent game also. Kind of hard to pick winners in some of these without, having watched all the teams play from the very beginning.
That looks like, that game right there is going to be for, the lead in the Western Division. Both teams are 4-2, and that's, 1-2 in that division there. So, that's a pretty big game for both of them.
It's going to be a huge game. So that may be, one of the games to watch this week. And then, of course, you have Arizona Rattlers at the Vegas Nighthawks. I'm sorry. I'm surprised they didn't say like Vegas Golden Nighthawks because everything has golden in its name in Vegas.
Well, they might get some pushback from the NHL if they said something Golden Knights.
But it'd be the Golden Nighthawks, right? It's not the same creature. But you're right. However, Arizona Rattlers, another former AFL team. Speaking of which, AFL is actually supposed to be back next year. So it's going to be very interesting to see these 3 different tiers of, arena football, how they're kind of they're going to duke it out rather for the market share to try and see who's actually going to be able to capitalize. And with a lot of these old AFL names branching off and joining like the IFL or even NAL, what's going to happen? Right now, keep in mind, we still have that lawsuit issue with the USFL and the San Antonio Gunslingers name, right? So that could potentially play a part in some of this as well. So it's going to be, keep your eyes peeled for news updates with that, because I have a feeling that's going to shake up a lot of things in the NAL. right? I don't know if that necessarily means it's going to be the demise of the AFL, or I'm sorry, the NAL, but it could potentially lead to an absorption, and maybe some team name changes, right? Because the AFL is going to want to come back and be as strong as they were before. So they're going to want to get some of their big names back, such as the Empire, the Predators, the Sharks, teams like that, right? There, of course, they'd want to have the Barnstormers back and the Arizona Rattlers. They're probably not going to get those, though. So let's kick it over to the NAL and talk about what was decidedly very least. Well, first, let's talk about the West Texas Warbirds versus the Albany Empire, right? That was played on Saturday at 7 p.m. Well, Eastern time, so that would be 6 p.m. here. Of course, watched highlights of that one. I did not get to watch the whole game. It was a close game.
Yeah, it was.
The Warbirds pulled out the win 41-38. And looking at the summary, West Texas took a lead pretty quick, 13 points in the first quarter, Albany 7 in the first quarter. But then they flipped the script. West Texas only got 7 in the second quarter, and Albany got 13. Then they come out in the third, both each get 7. So you've got, West Texas ahead by a point at this point, and they're duking it out there. And then West Texas basically closes it out 14 points to Albany's 2. And I can only assume that means that Albany must have either gone for a 2-point conversion and didn't make it, and then tried a second time and didn't make it. Or, something happened there for them, or maybe they just missed 2 field goals. Who knows? But whatever it was, they came up 3 points short. But let's talk about some of these stats, right? Daniel Smith with the West Texas Warbirds, 14-28, 169 yards, 3 touchdown passes. He had himself a quarterback rating of 105. Longest pass was 40 yards. That's pretty much the whole arena.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's pretty impressive. If you look at the rushing stats, you're looking at 30, 40, 50, 65, probably around 68 yards, which is kind of about average, give or take, for an arena game. But then we kick over to Albany, right? Their quarterback went 19-36, 241, threw himself 4 touchdown passes, but he only gets a quarterback rating of 76, right?
3 interceptions will kill you.
Yep. Every time. Plus he got sacked twice.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that did not help him. Now, rushing was all the quarterback, 6 attempts, 37 yards. So obviously, Albany was leaning on the arm of their quarterback, Rivers. And so again, that wound up being West Texas. And I would like to find out exactly what city they're in. Because there's, 4 or 5 different cities in West Texas that it could be. And so I'm wondering if half the town shuts down, kind of like what it does on Friday nights for football. But again, great game. Albany. And so then we move on to what, in my experience, was probably one of the weirdest games I think I've ever seen. Brian, why don't you talk to us about that Gunslingers game?
So real quick before West Texas Warbirds, they play in Odessa.
There you go.
So
we watch in the convenience store when they're playing the game.
Yeah, exactly. Gunslingers game. So I was kind of watching some of it, on and off. I got to watch the entire fourth quarter, kind of the end of the third. Was kind of poking in here for the beginning of the game, and it just kind of from the feel of the game, it seemed like the Gunslingers should have won by more than 13. It kind of had like watching the game, not paying attention to the score. You would have thought Gunslingers would have been up by like 20. But they make a bad play. I think they, turn the ball over, on the goal line. and Fayetteville come down and score. So yeah, it was kind of one of those games that like the Gunslingers didn't quite pull away like you probably thought they should have. Now also, maybe they're not familiar with that because this is their first game of the season that, wasn't decided by more than 2 points. So maybe they don't know how to play with the lead.
Yeah.
But it was kind of a weird game. One of those you thought San Antonio was going to pull away, but they never quite did. Fayetteville was always kind of hanging out, until right at the end, right in the fourth quarter. So,
now I will say I did try and watch this game. I made it all the way to deep into the third quarter because I wanted to watch the whole thing. And there was a very interesting set of downs where Fayetteville, I want to say it was a strip sack and San Antonio came up with the ball, right? Okay. Coach challenged it, of course. And, they went ahead and they gave it to San Antonio, maybe a little bit questionable call. But I feel ultimately it was the right call at the end of the day. However, San Antonio marches it down the field to the 5-yard line and then coughs it up.
Yeah.
Right. Which is very uncharacteristic of this team. So it really makes me wonder, not about the direction of the team or anything like that. I'm sure they'll be fine. This is probably just a bump in the road. But more just what happened that game, right? Where did they deviate from the game plan? Where did they fall off and struggle as much as they did, because again, we've seen this team fight every single game this season. They've won every game, but it's been a dogfight, and it's always been a high-scoring game. The announcers themselves were talking about how high-powered the offense was.
Yep.
And then for them to put up 40, it kind of makes me wonder, where the disconnect might have been that game. And I'm sure Fred Shaw, he's an incredible coach. He won Coach of the Year last year with the team that, by the midseason break was pretty much ready to pack up and move on out, right? But Shaw turned it around and got them basically to the point, if I remember correctly, where they still had a chance in the playoffs, even in the last game. So I don't doubt Coach Shaw's ability to lead this team, but I wonder what his thoughts would have been on this game and what he saw out there that he could adjust. Because I know there were several times that we saw him and he was not happy.
He probably ripped them because that should have been, they should have had 50, 60 points easy. It's just dumb mistakes.
That's probably the best summary of what happened that I can think of for the whole situation, right? That being the case, so we do have some more football action coming up this weekend. We're going into week 6. It looks like there's only one game this weekend, which is going to be Orlando at Carolina. And that's good for us because that means it's 7 less games that we have to watch this weekend. And I find it really amusing that we're having to complain about, having to watch 7 games of football. Like this is our life.
Yeah.
And there's just so much dang football right now. However, real quick, before we shift gears though, there was one play that I did not get to see, but you did, Brian. I want to talk about that play. Talk to us about it.
Okay. Yeah. So this was early in the fourth quarter. Fayetteville scored a touchdown, went for 2. They fumbled the ball. Gunslingers recovered. They start going down the field to return it. They lateral a couple times. Ended up lateraling it, fumbling it again back to Fayetteville. To the quarterback ended up with it, who then chunked it down the field into the end zone. And watching football for almost 40 years was like, well, that's an illegal forward pass. That's an obvious call it back, play no good. That's obvious. But watching the announcers and even watching, the comments kind of on the stream on YouTube was, oh, play good, let it stand. The announcers weren't sure what the refs were going to call on there. And I'm just sitting here like, that's a illegal forward pass. Now they eventually called the play no good. Didn't really give an explanation of why the refs called it that way, which I kind of wish they would have. But yeah, it was just kind of a weird series of events.
So one thing I would say to that is that there are going to be some differences in the rules between, what we know with, regular football and arena football. However, I don't think the rules are that different when it comes to, forward passing, that a play like that, I mean, it should have been called, illegal forward pass, basically a 5-yard penalty and a redo of the downs. Or in this case, the 2-point conversion, which is fine, right? 2 points wouldn't have really mattered in this game.
Like that one, I would think, because it was after a change of possession and then another change of possession. So at that point, you just call it a wash. They wouldn't have replayed that down, I don't think.
I mean, if it was maybe not. But either way, it breaks down to what it is. The play was called dead, and rightfully so, because it was an illegal forward pass. But that's where we need Blandino to step in and recite the rules to us or something like that.
And that is one thing I wish the NAL would do, at least on their broadcast, is kind of explain a little bit more what's going on. And the refs weren't mic'd up. There were a lot of calls that were made or penalties that didn't really get explained. I wish the NAL would do a little bit better about that.
Yeah.
Well,
and again, we've talked about it offline before. The video quality isn't quite the same as what we would expect. I'm not sure if, maybe it's a problem with the stadiums and the AV equipment there. Just not sure, but it's not quite the level that I would expect it to be at for it being, professional indoor football. So maybe some tweaks need to be made. Maybe they need to go down to Best Buy, buy themselves a new camera, a microphone, whatever. Get one of those Logitech webcams. We're not sponsored by Logitech, but we'll gladly take your sponsorship. But just some upgrading equipment, right? And get that connection, bridge, so that when a referee does call a penalty, what the penalty is, what the result of the penalty is, and why it was called.
Speaking of equipment in that game, and now like on field, all that. Did you see the turf?
Oh yeah.
Poor
Fayetteville Mustangs. Hey Philip, how's it going, man?
How's it going, Philip?
Absolutely love the fact that while we're watching the game, we're staring at the LA Kiss logo that's painted over with this triangular hockey puck looking symbol.
Yeah, they tried to cover it up, but no, there was no mistake in that Kiss logo.
Yes.
That was cool.
Every time that ball hit center field, your eyes were immediately drawn to it. And it's like, man, that's an AFL field. And
exactly.
You probably got it for like $20, because like, why would Gene Simmons care about the money at this point, right? So he probably gave it to him for free,
right?
Because of the epic, disaster that was the LA Kiss. and I say that tongue in cheek, right? The LA Kiss was not a bad team. Attendance was actually pretty good. Gene Simmons and the rest of the guys did a phenomenal job marketing that team. But the problem is, it was in the AFL towards its demise.
Yeah.
It just,
it was bad timing,
Yeah.
If they had been a few years earlier, they would have been a whole different story.
Yeah. So again, this next week, going into Sunday, the 14th, we've got Orlando Predators versus Carolina Cobras. that should be a pretty decent game to watch. So, if you're looking for something to do on Sunday afternoon, about 2:00 or so, you can definitely tune that in. We've got, of course, the USFL games and everything going on. And there's some IFL games as well. We definitely encourage you to, find some of these and watch them. Give some of these alternative leagues a chance. I'm pretty sure you're going to find something that you're going to like there.
Oh yeah, it's football. Who doesn't love football? And it's not the NFL. It's not XFL or any of that. But it's a fun game to kick back on the couch and just watch. So.
Oh, nice. That should be good. Right here. Philip Bunch by Orlando. So that should be pretty good.
Nice.
But speaking of Orlando and switching gears to our favorite, the XFL, Brian, let me ask you a question. How many players, just off the top of your head without looking, how many players from this year's version of the XFL do you think got invites to mini camps with the NFL?
Well, I'm going to be cheating because we talked about it a little bit before the show. There are now 40 players. Oh, you know what? I can't take a guess. 40 XFL players invited to mini camps. That is amazing. And, hats off to those guys and just awesome. I mean, they're doing exactly what this league was designed to do. Put them out on some tape, give them a shot to potentially be on another NFL roster.
Yep. So the thing that I found extremely impressive is that all 3 Seattle quarterbacks got invited to a mini camp. Okay. Our guy, Jack Cohn, got invited to 2 different mini camps with the Jets. And I believe it was with the Dolphins. Let me look it up here real quick.
Jets and Seahawks.
Jets and Seahawks. I knew it was some kind of creature with the C. But that's phenomenal in and of itself, right? We talked about Cohn. He definitely, I don't think got the accolades that he probably should have received. Towards the end of the season, he definitely showed that he has the skills to be a good quarterback. He just needs that line, right? He's a pocket passer. And for some guys, it works, right? Cohn, it definitely works. So, thoughts going out to him as he gets ready for these mini camps. Hopefully he makes an impression on the Jets or on the Seahawks. I personally think it would do wonders for Cohn to go to the Jets and sit behind a guy like Aaron Rodgers and get some time, with the living legend. But every one of these guys, there's 40 of them. And by the way, like half of our defense, it's a bit of an exaggeration, but half of our defense got invited to camps.
Yeah.
Like that proves that San Antonio's defense was by far, arguably the best defense in the XFL. I keep wanting to say NFL, but so let's go down the list, right? For quarterbacks, you've got Gucci Danucci, who's been invited to Broncos camp. Jack Cohn, Jets and Seahawks. Harrison Frost from Seattle, invited to the Saints. And then Steven Montez, invited to 49ers camp. Brian, running backs?
Running backs. So we got Mateo Durant from St. Louis to the Jets and San Antonio's own Jacques Patrick to the Broncos.
We actually call him Mr. Patrick, sir, because,
Mr. Patrick.
He earned that respect.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay. Hakeem Butler from St. Louis going to the Steelers camp.
It's no surprise at all. I mean, Hakeem Butler was one of the best receivers, in the league this year. So,
by far. Charleston Rambo has been with Orlando, has been invited to the Eagles camp. Shep with St. Louis, obviously, which is another incredible receiver. Yep. He's going to the Lions. I hope he can find a better team to go to and get picked up by, but I'll still cheer him on, even if he's wearing that disgusting blue and silver. Then you've got Jacour Pearson with Seattle going to the Colts and Falcons minicamp. And Kirkland from Houston is going to Giants. And then Austin Prohl, baby, Panthers and Eagles. And I hope somebody picks him up because I want to see him be the next success story from the XFL. He's an underrated undervalued player. He showed that he's got the chops, even though he may be undersized a bit. He's got the skills, he's got the ability, he's got the talent, and he's got the hunger to make a difference on a roster. So, hope and prayers for him that, he makes a big impact there and can actually get picked up somewhere, even if he's second string.
He's that kind of Beasley type receiver that the Cowboys had a few years ago. Just that little slot receiver that just kind of gets lost, and it's he appears up and catches the ball and then runs for 40 yards. So,
yep. So tight ends, you've got Sutton from Vegas going to Falcons. Thomas from Orlando going to Panthers. We switch over to the offensive line. Man, there's a bunch of them.
Yep.
Mollett from Houston, Seahawks. Wesley from Seattle going to Falcons. West from Vegas going to Panthers. Our guy Chidi Okeke has been invited to the Steelers camp. Seems like Steelers are making a play for all the San Antonio players. I wonder why. Magwood from Seattle is going to Bills. Snyder from Houston has been invited to Dolphins and now the Ravens camp. Doxter from Houston going to Saints. I swear it looks like Dox Tater, but I'm just going to say Doxter. Hopefully he doesn't hear this and kill me. Mine from Seattle is going to Falcons camp. Kelly from SA is going to the Panthers. And Kelly from Seattle is going to Saints. And then the list goes on, right? Definitely want to make sure that we give a shout out to Gotel's going to the Falcons camp. Yep. And Barku is going to the Browns, which is painful. But here's the other painful one. For me, the most painful. John Parker Romo got invited to the Lions. Okay? So I hope it works out for him. I really do. I hate the fact that he's going to a competitor on my color. We wish the best for all of these guys, right? We hope for nothing but success for every one of these guys that's trying out for a mini camp. And if maybe they get invited to a camp that isn't quite a good fit for their talents, that maybe they can show off at those mini camps, and maybe, one athletic trainer or one offensive coordinator or whatever makes a call to his buddy on another team and says, hey, this guy isn't going to cut it for us, but maybe you want to give him a look, right? And so it's the second and third opportunities to get as many of these guys into the NFL as possible. Because again, we've talked about it before, the importance of this product to be able to produce the next generation of NFL players that didn't otherwise get a chance. This is definitely, I'm sorry, I have a husky, and you know how huskies are.
Oh yeah.
This is their opportunity, right? Where opportunity meets whatever The Rock said. I don't even remember anymore, right? But this is that next evolution in training for these guys. So this is proof positive that the system works and that there is a definite need for it. So that being said, now we get to go to the all XFL team, and I cannot open up the link for the life of me. It just absolutely will not open up.
I've got it pulled up right here, Jason. If you want to, I can go through it.
Go ahead and break it down for us, Brian.
So XFL all offense team is Jordan Ta'amu, quarterback from DC, obviously. Running back Abram Smith from DC. They had a pretty good backfield there, quarterback and running back. So both well deserved for both of those guys. Wide receivers, you had Burnett from Houston, Hakeem Butler, St. Louis, Lucky Jackson from DC, Ja'Cory Pearson from the Sea Dragons. Tight end was Latimer from the Guardians.
Well, hang on real quick. Let's go back. It does bother me that Prohl did not make the all XFL team. I think, again, overlooking his contribution and everything, but I'm just going to leave it there.
I thought that when I first saw the list, and then kind of going back, looking at Prohl kind of disappeared the last few games. Whether, because McCarron, he was kind of nursing the injury, and kind of just the way the teams were guarding Prohl and stuff like that. he wasn't as active later in the season as he was early in the season. So I think that might have hurt him a little bit for this.
Well, and I think he drew a lot more coverage towards the
Yeah.
end of the season as playoff implications started coming in and everything.
Which
People
they
really
were, because he was running kind of the shorter routes and stuff, and he gets covered. Well, and that opened it up for Hakeem Butler and stuff like that down the field. So
yeah, and Butler always was involved in some way, shape, or form. But anyways, go ahead, keep going.
So Latimer for the tight end from the Guardians, offensive line, Fornadell from Defenders, Gonzalez from St. Louis, Jones Smith from St. Louis, Colin Kelly from the Seattle, Millette from Houston, Panasic, I don't know how to pronounce that name, from the Battlehawks.
It's a lot of St. Louis players you've been naming.
Yeah,
Also,
a lot of St. Louis players on that line.
Let's talk about some defense players now.
Let's talk about some defensive players. Beasley, our boy Beasley from Brahmas, Bellamy from Defenders. Oh, that's our buddy right there, Bellamy. Yeah, we were having some fun with him in that last game. Speaking of, off the subject a little bit, but championship game this weekend, I think DC might be the visitors, so they'll be sitting on our side. So we may be able to say hi to our buddy again.
We definitely will. Yeah, right. I think Arlington is getting the home team side, so we're not going to be able to jeer them like we wanted to.
That's unfortunate, but it's all right. It's all right. So back to it. So, but yeah, Bellamy from DC, Austin Faoliu. Sorry, I probably butchered that horribly, from Seattle. Heflin from Houston. Lambert from Arlington. Patton from Orlando. Delonte Scott, San Antonio.
Delonte Scott, baby.
Right. Linebackers, you got Trent Harris from Houston. Temupinu from Vegas. And actually, he I believe he was probably in the top 2 or 3 in the league in sacks. And I believe he missed the first 2 or 3 games or something. So, because if I remember listening correctly, he had something like 6 sacks in 3 or 4 games.
Yeah.
So, and then Jordan Williams again from the Brahmas. Defensive backs, Deontay Anderson from Vegas, Barku, San Antonio, Harris from Houston, Hill from St. Louis, and Joseph from the Defenders. Special teams, kicker, our boy Romo, Wheelan from the Defenders as the punter, and the specialist, return specialist Darius Shepard. So,
and definitely rightfully so that they picked Shepard for that position, because the guy was just an absolute beast on returns.
Yeah, and so they, I mean, all those guys are deserving of that. I love that San Antonio. We had 4 players represented in the defense, which, if my math was correct while reading those, we had more defensive players on that list than any other team. So,
yeah, although, I mean, St. Louis, obviously, their offense was just ungodly, right? And rightfully so. I mean, they deserve to be, have that many players on, the offense, all XFL team. But again, right, the proof is in the pudding. We talked about our defense all season long, how great they were, and it shows having that many players, and even our specialists, right?
Absolutely.
Having that many players on there. And I'm not saying that we had the most. By far, we did not have the most players on the all XFL squad, but we had a good amount, and San Antonio definitely did represent well. So Hines Ward, hats off to you, man. You picked well. You did a really good job. with, you know, a ragtag group that you really literally had no time with before the season started. And so I cannot say in words how proud I am of the team that we had and how well they did, all things considered.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I think we've kind of beat that to death, talking about it. But it does. It needs to be said that yeah, we didn't have the season we wanted, but considering everything that we had to go through, it was just a testament to these players, a testament to this team, and a testament to Hines Ward.
Yep.
So it was so easy to give up, but they didn't. They didn't. They fought all the way through. So
well, and specifically Hines Ward and staff, right? Because it wasn't all just Hines Ward. But definitely he did a great job managing everything that he had, and just being surrounded by the people that he did. Now, let's talk about that championship game. Okay. We've got the DC Defenders taking on the Arlington Renegades for the XFL Championship. Brian, what are we looking at in this game?
We're looking at, just from, outside point of view, or just kind of looking at it, face value, looks like it's going to be a blowout. I think that's what, people, just casual fans, and even probably some of the ones that have been watching all season, is DC has shown that they are a much better team than what Arlington is. But we also said the same thing about Arlington versus Houston, and we said last week, right now Arlington is playing some really good football. Perez just, he's got control of that offense, and I don't know if Arlington's going to come out with the win, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than what people are saying it's going to be right now.
Yep. And I'm 100% in agreement with you, right? We know DC has been a powerhouse all season long. For them to go 9-1 and almost go 8-2, and potentially have had to have faced us again in the championship, because I believe if we could have gotten past DC and Arlington choked, we would have taken it to Houston in their house and brought it back home. That being said, okay, I think Orlando does have the hot hand right now in Luis Perez, with his experience, with his knowledge, with his time on the field in the XFL. I mean, this guy's an XFL veteran, right? He's played in the 2020 iteration of the XFL. He's gotten a bunch of snaps in the NFL. I mean, the guy knows how to read a field.
I mean, we talked about it before. He, just watching him play, and one of the best things about the XFL is having the mics and stuff, and just hearing him talk to the receivers. And when he was in Vegas, coming to Arlington, just how smart he is, how much he knows the game of football.
Yep. But I think that's where Arlington's advantage ends, right? In Perez.
Yep.
He doesn't have the same, he's got some great receivers, but they're not DC receivers. They're not the same caliber. It's not the same kind of connection that like Tamu has with his receivers, right? Or with his running back. That whole offense runs like a well-oiled machine. And, their defense, DC's defense has been slacking off a little bit, right? They've been, a little bit off of their game, if you will. But I don't think that Arlington has enough on offense to be able to capitalize defense. And I know Arlington's defense is not going to be able to handle that high-powered attack from Tamu and company. So I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think it's going to be much closer than what everybody's anticipating, or what many people are anticipating, because I know a bunch of people that are saying don't sleep on Arlington, and that's specifically you, DJ. But I know people are saying don't sleep on Arlington, and I'm not. But I cannot in good faith say that I believe Arlington is going to walk out of this game with a win. I believe they're going to put up a fight, and it's going to be a fight to the bitter end. I'm predicting a 4-point gap in the score, but I see DC walking out with the championship.
Yeah, ultimately, I agree. I think DC is going to take it. 4 points. I don't know if I'd give you 4 on that. Just looked it up right now. Current odds are DC by 6.5. I would say 6 is probably what I would go with that. I would take Arlington in the spread because I think they're going to cover it, but
I think that 6-point gap, I think, is being extremely too generous.
yeah,
I think Arlington is going to be pulling out all the stops. They're going to be bringing everything they got. Okay. And so I think it's going to be much closer. I think it's going to be a 4-point spread. And I still think that DC is going to walk away with the win, but it's going to come down to probably the last minute of the game, that Arlington's going to be in that fight. So I see DC ending it on the clock, Arlington having spent all of its timeouts and DC kneeling the game to victory. So it's a bold prediction. I'm going to stand by it, but that's what I see, man.
Yep.
So that being said, talking about bold predictions, there's one other bold prediction, or should I say probably a bold announcement that we probably ought to talk about this week.
That's right.
So this is the worst time to buffer. The absolute worst time. And 100% it's on my end. But in addition to all the fun festivities that we've got going on Saturday at the championship game, at some point Brian's going to have to catch up to me, or I'm going to have to stop buffering, and so we can actually do this announcement. You still there, Brian? There you are.
You got
Yeah, it's 100%. It's me on my end. Everybody's getting on their Xboxes and their PlayStations and stealing up my interwebs. But so announcement to make. This Friday at 6 p.m. at Alamo Beer Company, we're going to be doing the X Legion Mega Show. That's going to be a bunch of different podcasts from around the nation coming down here to get together and go live to talk about the game. So that's going to be the X Fan Show, B-Hawk Live, the Rough 'em Up podcast out of Houston. Yours truly, us, Texans Talking Football is going to be there. The Horns Forward podcast is going to be there. There's going to be a podcast from Orlando that's coming in. I feel like there's a bunch more that I can't
Smoking Guns is going to be there.
Smoking Guns from San Antonio is going to be there. Thank you. There's going to be several others, right? So this is going to be potentially one of the largest XFL podcast meetups in the history of the league. We may actually be setting a record, right? Maybe worth looking into it to see with Guinness Book of Records.
All right, so somebody called Guinness.
Yep. And not the beer either, but we'll drink that too.
Oh, I'll tell you, I love Guinness. So,
but we got to support Alamo because they supported the Brahmas. But again, Alamo Beer Company has been gracious enough to allow us to use their facilities to broadcast this mega show. So we will be coming to you live from Alamo Beer Company at 6 p.m. Make sure that you tune in. Look for links on any of your favorite podcasts homepages so you can tune in live. I know the X Fan Show is going to be hosting all of it, so it's going to be interesting to figure out how they do all the technology to get us all on all at once. But all these podcasts are going to be represented. It's going to be a great time. It's something that you're not going to want to miss. This is going to be history in the making. Mark it down. It's going to be awesome. So that being said, the other thing is that Saturday before the game, right, in true Texas fashion and San Antonio tradition, we are going to be tailgating at that game. El Mariachi himself is going to be celebrating his birthday that weekend. And so what that means is that from Lot B at the Alamo Dome, you're going to see 2 neon green pop-up tents with a VW bus, right? There's going to be a live DJ. There's going to be a full-on mariachi band, the whole shebang, outfits, the sombreros, everything. Right, they're going to be playing for about an hour. The DJ will be spinning records for probably 3 hours. There's going to be food. There's going to be fun. There's going to be stuff for the whole entire family. So we're inviting everybody out. All of our friends from DC, come on down, grab yourself some food, some drink with us, hang out, let's have a good time. Our friends from Arlington, you guys are welcome also. We tease you, give you hard time, right? Fashion. You treated us well when we came up to see you. We're going to treat you well when you come down to this game.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Absolutely.
So tailgating is open to everybody. If for whatever reason you can't find tickets, tickets are on sale. There's some discount codes out there. I cannot remember what it is, but there's tickets as low as $25. Plus, there's also a 20% off discount code. So just search the internet for, I almost said interwebs. Search the internet for the discount code, get that 20% off discount, get yourself in the game, okay? If for whatever reason the time doesn't work for you, something comes up, whatever, even if you can only make the tailgating, come on out and enjoy some free food, some free beer, and some great fellowship with all of your XFL family, right? That's ultimately what this league has been all about from the fan standpoint.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes, we all have our favorite teams. Yes, we have our, hometown homers like us that are supporting our teams and everything, even if our teams aren't there. But at the end of the day, the success of the league comes from the interdependency of all of us on each other, right? Every fan base needs every other fan base to keep this thing around and to keep it going for many years to come. So come on out, support the league, support a team, whatever. Just come on out and hang out with us. Have a great time. Have a couple of refreshing brewskis, some great food. Orlando's Barbecue is going to be there. There's a hot dog food truck that's going to be there. I think it's called the Hot Dogologist.
Yeah, which had his hot dogs before. They're very good. So I mean, there's gonna be a lot of really good food there. Some really great people. So come down, come hang out, come say hi. It's your first time in San Antonio. Come down, see how we tailgate, because we do it right.
Yep. When you come down, make sure you find Daryl Johnson, aka DJ, from the Horns Forward podcast, and ask him about the Alamo basement. Okay. Right. Make sure you ask him about it. He'll know what you're talking about. You have a good old laugh about it. But again, come on down, have a good time. So that being said, I think we've pretty much gone over our time limit, Brian. Anything else you want to add before we call this?
Nope. That's it, man. Really looking forward to this weekend, man. A lot of, obviously, Friday, the big mega podcast. It's just really cool to be involved with that. Really looking forward to the game. So I'm excited for this weekend of football, man.
Yep. And as sad as it is, right, because this is going to be the last XFL game for the XFL season, there will be some stuff in the fall. There's, of course, going to be the XFL mini camps and the draft and everything towards the end of the year. Players assigned to teams and stuff like that. We know Coach is coming back with most of his staff. Joey Porter, of course, is coming back. We just don't know exactly what players from, XFL 2023. My hope is that most of them don't, although I really would like to see them come back, right? Because we've fallen in love with these folks, but I want to see them be successful, and I want to see them have, NFL careers and grow into that. But again, a lot of things are going to be changing. Some things will be staying the same. There's going to be a lot of excitement in the next couple of months, right? There's going to be a ton of stuff from the XFL fan Facebook page that really kind of helped start a lot of this. It helped start our podcast, helped start the Horns Forward podcast. We're going to be doing events to make sure that fans are still connected with other fans and still connected with the fan base with the XFL. So again, just because the season's over doesn't mean the festivities end, right?
No, absolutely. No,
we're just getting geared up for the next season.
That's right. As soon as 5 o'clock on Saturday hits, we're going to start getting into the 2024 season. So,
yep. So again, come on out, join us, have a good old time. For Horns Forward Podcast, of course, I'm SAJ.
I'm BD.
And we will catch you next time as you listen to two Texans talking about football. We are out.